Don't make much noise, like talking. You won't hear your prey, and they may even hear you coming. Choose clothing that does not make much noise, like cotton. Waterproof clothing, by design, makes a lot of noise. Before buying the clothes in the store, run your hands along the front, back, sleeves, pants to see what it sounds like. If it is too noisy, don't buy it. Check the sound of zippers and don't use Velcro. These sounds travel far in the wild. Don't leave your cell phone volume on. Don't smack gum, whistle, crack your knuckles, or hum. Learn to look where you're stepping. In Ninjutsu, we call this dead walking. Don't snap twigs or step on dry vegetation. Walk softly. Don't drag your feet. If you accidentally make a noise, get small and freeze for at least 10 seconds. Keep your silhouette as small and invisible as possible, and remember about your backpack sticking up. Camouflage your face with paint or charcoal. Darker colors go on high points of your face to make false shadows, and lighter colors go on deeper points to make false light. This will help neutralize the features of your face. Do not wear reflective or metal surfaces. Don't smile to reveal your teeth. Shower before you track. Use deodorant, not antiperspirant. Do not use perfume. Don't smoke. Your smell will travel and give you away. Practice. Theory alone is not good enough. Look at impressions. The deeper a track, the heavier they are, or the more load they are carrying. Look for transfer whenever the landscape changes. Water onto rocks, grass onto a porch, dirt into water, sand onto leaves, mud onto a dry surface, or even a spot of mud missing that stuck to a boot, blood on a barbed wire. Look for damage, missing berries, pressed down vegetation, or broken twigs that a lot of people do out of habit, or to mark a trail. Look for disturbances. A disturbance is when something has been moved but not broken. The most common type is a negative imprint, such as from a rock or a branch for someone stepping on it, kicking it, tripping, or not lifting their feet. Watch for threads on trees from snagged clothing. Look for garbage. People who eat on the move always drop part of what they eat. This can also help age how long since they have been there. Man-made treats will be left the longest, like chocolate-covered things, but more natural items like nuts and raisins will be eaten by squirrels or birds the fastest. If they are eating a trail mix and see nuts, they have been there recently, but if you only see Smarties, it has been some time longer. If dirt from a toe kick is fresh, it will still be wet and can easily be brushed away because it's loose. If you get into thicker bush, the trick is to think like your prey and ask yourself where you would go. If tracks are going into the bush, check to see if there are exit tracks. If there are not, they are likely still hiding inside. When your prey travels through tall grass, it will show a silver path as they travel away, and darker if they have traveled toward you. After half an hour or so, it will spring back up. In pine needles or fallen leaves, you will not find tracks. You will then have to look for disturbances instead. If the prey steps on leaves still attached to plants, it will bruise on the bottom only and cannot be seen from the top. Once the leaf starts to wilt and turn brown or yellow, it is over an hour since it has been damaged. Thicker vegetation will only show on the underside. Young maple saplings, when parted, will spring back into place immediately, but you could find missing or broken leaves. Also watch for missing dew in the path where the prey have traveled. If the prey are sticking to traveling on rocks, it is very difficult to track. You will need to watch for transfer or disturbances where they stepped off or onto the rocks momentarily. If someone walks through the mud, they will usually stomp their feet to free the mud from their boots within 10 feet. If someone walks through a water puddle, the silt at the bottom of the water will move and usually settle just larger than the original footprint and will appear slightly lighter than the surrounding surface. If the bottom of the puddle is covered in leaves, there will be no silt to disturb, but dirt from their shoes will settle on top of the leaves. Also, when they exit the water, they will kick forward some water with them. Near larger water bodies, you might find a butt impression from where someone sat down to remove their shoes before crossing. In fast-moving water, there is no silt, and you cannot see into the water. Just judge what you would do if you were them. If someone crosses a river to try and trick you, and you can see the tracks following the river on the other side, 90% of the time, they will recross back to your side. When tracking in sand, it may be hard to see the tracks. Try blurring your vision and looking 50 feet ahead. Your lower peripheral may pick up the tracks in the sand. Walking backward in the sand will reveal clear toe impressions, where walking forward will obscure them. In sand, snow, or mud, if your foot sinks in, it will leave forward dragging marks of the like material that are clearly visible. When prey walk through a swamp, you will see sludge or water at the exit points. Lighting is important. Sometimes if you block out the sun and shine a bright light at ground level across the area, you will see tracks pop that you wouldn't otherwise see. Some people wear headlamps on their shins. Other times, at noon when the sun is directly overhead, just blocking the direct sun is enough to make tracks stand out. In snow, when the snow is dragged forward at the front of the track, if the snow is loose, it is fresh, but if it is sticking to the snow beneath, it is older. Remember what the weather has been like for the last few days once you begin to track prey, and keep in mind how weather patterns can be different in a city than on a mountain, at the base of a mountain, or on the edge of a lake. If you must track in a cityscape, it's much harder. There are no tracks on pavement or cement. You will only have transfer on or off of the pavement. In these cases, you must rely much more on their routines and usual hangouts. It is more helpful here to employ search dogs. If the prey is being hunted, they will likely do much of the same things as in the wild. They will run as far and as fast for as long as they can, then eventually hide, probably in a familiar location. It is also hard to track through all-terrain vehicle trails and snowmobile trails, especially if they go over rocks and swamps. Step-by-step tracking is when you take it slow and literally find a single track before moving on to the next. Even if you can clearly see just ahead where their tracks are, you may not want to jump ahead, but continue to find each individual track, because there could be a point where the prey went into the woods for some reason, and you could find something important, like a bloodied bandage. This changes things. Jump tracking is when you skip ahead when you see a track continues ahead instead of looking for each individual track. This is more helpful when you need to gain ground on your prey and your time is sensitive. In this case, if you come to a fork in the road, go down one a bit looking for tracks, then go down the other if you see nothing. If you cannot find anything on either, then you must revert to step-by-step tracking to narrow it down. Prey likely will never walk straight through a puddle since they'll want to keep their feet dry. Remember, a student of tracking is a student of human or animal behavior, as the case may be. By knowing your prey, you will increase your success by anticipating likely locations to look based on habits, hobbies, and routines. But you also want to know specifics about the person you are tracking. You should know their fitness level, outdoor knowledge and experience, profession, medical history, habits, height, weight, and shoe size, even the exact shoe, if you can. When tracking, prey usually gravitate to the path of least resistance. They want to remain comfortable and avoid difficulties. When available, prey will likely travel on trails, roads, paths, or railways. Prey will usually travel downhill, but might go uphill if they need to see where they might go. They will attempt to go somewhere that will keep their feet dry. Prey will avoid bad odors. Prey will avoid getting dirty. Prey will usually stay away from dark, confined spaces. In the beginning of a pursuit, if they know they are being pursued, prey will do things and go places they would never normally go in an attempt to throw off the tracker or make it more difficult for the tracker. But after exhaustion starts setting in, they will either unconsciously, or because they just don't care anymore, default back to the path of least resistance. The average person's pace through the wilderness is 1.5 to 2 miles per hour, or 2.4 to 3.2 kilometers per hour. You may think an injured person will stop, but they will usually keep going to get medical care quicker. Remember to put yourself in the same situation to determine what you would do or where you would go. Get into their head. A lost person will go toward water if they can see it. A startled person that is being chased will go to the easiest and largest opening to quickly get away. Check on both sides of logs for tracks in areas with the largest openings. People like to keep you in their sights, so if you are chasing someone and you pass them while they are hiding, they will move again, so listen to the sides and rear as you chase. Straight tracks indicate that the prey is focused and knows what they want. Jump tracking is more useful in these situations. If these straight tracks show the occasional sign of a foot twisting 45 degrees, it's because they are nervous and watching their back trail for you or something else. If the prey's tracks show that an otherwise straight track occasionally dips to the side of the path, they are looking for quick escape points if you suddenly show up. Outdoor, experienced prey will be harder to track, but inexperienced prey will do stupid things like leave their cell phone turned on. If you are looking for a small child, they can often hide from trackers, like when their parents argue and they hide in the closet. They might even feel like they could be in trouble for getting lost and try to avoid you. Take things into consideration. A long-distance runner won't necessarily make it farther than a hunter in the woods. Hunters are used to stepping over logs and rocks and obstacles. Runners are not. In search and rescue situations, they use what is called a hasty team. This is a 3-man team that each have their job. One does the tracking, one does the navigating, and one does radio communications and first aid. In these roles, when the tracker gets tired eyes, usually every 2 or 3 hours, he cannot focus any longer. The trio will then switch roles for fresh eyes. This will prevent frustration and missed tracks. Behind the tracker are the other 2 also looking for other things besides tracks themselves. Once you get your first track to follow, take a picture of it to refer back to so you can remember the details. A prey that is tired, perhaps from carrying a heavy load, will have deeper tracks and more drag marks. They will also stick to the path of least resistance more often. They will kick more rocks out of place. Under ideal conditions, you might also see 2 left prints, which could indicate they are hopping from a stub toe or blisters. Watch for blood or bandages too. If the prey are running, their legs are healthy. There is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing choices. Know the prey's profile, like behavior, terrain, weather, preparedness, medical conditions. Ask yourself, where would you go? Women are more likely to hide, while men want to tough it out. All prey will be encouraged in the direction of water, the path of least resistance, and to climb a hill to see the route ahead. None of us walk in straight lines. People wanting to be found will get on trails and will stop moving after 24 hours. Hikers and kids are more likely to travel uphill, while hunters and the elderly are more likely to travel downhill. Children under 3 may not even realize they are lost. Once they figure it out, they will probably huddle under a tree and make it harder to be found. Kids aged 3 to 6 are explorers, but once they realize they are lost, they'll hide too because they have been taught not to talk to strangers, even if they hear someone calling their name. Kids aged 6 to 12 are afraid they are going to be punished once found, so they will evade. Remember, the elderly prey could be hard of hearing and forgetful. Always teach your kids that if they get lost in the woods, they will not be in trouble and they should not hide. Mentally handicapped people will be more likely to hide too. People with Alzheimer's will not call for help or reply call. Only in 1% of cases will they do so. They will likely be looking for home or a familiar place like somewhere they used to work, even if it was many years and hundreds of kilometers away. They could go to a last known address, an adult child's house, and they tend to walk in circles. Depressed people are not lost, but contemplating suicide. Mountain bikers usually refuse to turn around. Hikers might start on a loop trail, but when they get tired, they'll try to shortcut straight across to the other side. They will otherwise usually stick to trails and go farther than others. Military people are trained to evade and hide tracks. If it's been more than a day, also look for scavenging for food and water, maybe making a shelter. Whenever you are going in the woods, always take a good map and compass. Check the weather before you leave. Tell someone where you are going or leave a note. It's not a bad idea to leave your route highlighted on a map. If you go out often, keep a laminated map at home and mark your route with dry erase markers and an estimated return time. All members of your family should have a pair of underwear or a sock that you wore all day in a Ziploc bag in the freezer. If someone in your family becomes lost, give the unopened bag to the authorities who will use it with search dogs. Update these every few years. Stay on well-marked trails. Don't change your mind if you didn't mark the route as a possibility back at home. Keep looking back at the path behind you. Make a note of major landmarks. Use a digital camera to document what the route looks like from behind if you need to go back. If you have to leave the trail, break off branches or use flagging tape to mark your route, and take them off again when you come back.
The music you make, I